you're watching the India development debate. Now, e-commerce companies are a worried lot at a time when more and more Indians are warming up to the convenience of buying and selling things at the click of a mouse. The government has put a spanner in their works. The new FDI rules on e-commerce players have come a cropper to the likes of Flipkart and Amazon that are now barred from selling exclusive products. Henceforth, they cannot sell products of companies in which they hold equity stake either. Well, the government has justified the move, saying that such norms are required to curb monopolistic tendencies. Quite obviously, the changes come at the behest of brick and mortar companies that have been complaining about deep discounting by online sellers. E-commerce companies have raised the red flag, saying that it's important to have a market-driven framework in order to develop a strong online ecosystem. Well, interestingly, the move is coming on the back of much criticized proposal to levy angel tax on startups. Questions have also been raised on the intentions of the Modi government that's committed to ease of doing business. The new curbs on e-commerce companies and how they could impact their business models is what we're going to be debating this evening on the India Development Debate. And for that, we'd like to welcome Vaibhav Kakkar, partner of M&A at Luthra & Luthra, Ashwini Mahajan, national co-convener of the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, Harminder Sahani is founder of Wazir Advisors, and K. Ganesh, founder of Growth Story, is here with us as well. Gentlemen, good evening and a big thank you for taking the time out. Vaibhav, let me begin by asking you, and please do set the context for, this discussion, because there seems to be some sort of doubts about whether all these new rules are actually new. Marketplace platforms were already restricted from owning, controlling inventory or even contributing to more than 25% sales of a vendor. So to that extent, what is it in this notification that the government has made explicit now?
Yeah, hi Tanya. I think, what's actually happened is you're quite right that some of the nuances were already there in the policy. The policy already prescribed that no single seller or that sellers group companies can sell more than 25% on the platform. There were also restrictions around indirectly influencing pricing. I think in the backdrop of all the political landscape and the changing issues around it, I think the government has now gone one step further and has restricted essentially e-commerce platforms to not even directly or indirectly own equity in a company which is selling on the marketplace. They've also restricted e-commerce platforms to be involved in B2B side of activities. A number of these marketplace companies were actually acting as strong and large wholesalers and buying products in huge value using the economies of scale and then helping the sellers to sell on the platform. So what's happened now is that the earlier policy which allowed the likes of Amazon and Flipkart to actually have their own group companies sell 25% and no more on the marketplace have now going forward from 1st of February been told that they cannot sell anything on the marketplace and just purely act as a platform to connect the sellers and the buyer. Some of the principles, Tanya, were already there, that you cannot indirectly or directly influence the price. But instead of enforcing that, now you've added prescriptions, which of course, do complicate things that much more.
Harminder Sahani, let me ask you. So the attempt clearly seems to be to make marketplaces far more genuine and of course mollify brick and mortar retailers. Has that intent been made very clear, and is it going to serve it?
See, I think the intent has been made amply clear, because last time when the notification had come, and this was the question which I had, that there were some loopholes and using that people still could be selling. And now I think even though it has taken a long time, because those loopholes were quite obvious at that point of time itself. So I think now the clarity has come in, and its intention is very clear that government doesn't want international companies to be doing retailing in India. That's it. So for that, whatever, I think that just one line saying that you can only invest in marketplaces, and the marketplace is supposed to provide the technology platform and plus other services. The policy could have ended there, but seeing that how it has been misinterpreted in the past, they have gone and added a lot of words to it to make it absolutely clear there shouldn't be any doubt that India doesn't want international companies to be doing e-commerce retail in India. That's it. So I think the intent is very clear. Now the law is also very, very clear, and now these companies, they will have to find a way that how they are going to change their structures by 1st of February to comply with these laws. And the brick of more than the offline, I would say this, the Indian companies, whosoever wants to be in the e-commerce business or online retail business, they must be feeling very happy about it, because practically the foreign competition has been shut out of it. But if you see from the ecosystem point of view, a very large amount of investments which were coming through foreign direct investment in this area, I think that will evaporate, and it will be only Indian capital which will be, whatever capital will be available, that will be only Indian capital which can be invested into building e-commerce business in India now.
Okay, we'll of course talk about the merits and demerits of that in a bit, but Mr. Mahajan, let me ask you, FDI, as Harminder Sahni said, in the sector will literally evaporate. You've always maintained that the business model of e-tailers like Amazon and Flipkart are predatory. Do you believe that this will now create a level playing field?
Yeah, in fact, this policy is aimed at providing a level playing field to the Indian domestic e-commerce players, and I think it will also give a ecosystem to the present e-commerce players in India in lakhs of numbers. If these two companies who have been circumventing the law, who have been flouting the rules, and despite the press note 3, they had been continuing with the predatory pricing. So that was killing not only the small shopkeepers, small booksellers, and even the chemists, drug sellers. They have also been a roadblock to the lakhs of startups in the e-commerce, and they were looking forward for a good business, which they were not finding because of the cash burning model of the Amazon and Flipkart. So this definitely is going to, in fact, we had been saying that press note 3 was good, because it was very clear that they can't offer price distorting discounts, but still they were finding ways and means through their closely held companies selling the produce at a predatory price. So this is going to definitely, in fact, lots of crores of people in the small business, they must have taken a sigh of relief with this, and e-commerce players must be flying high, because actually this is what we want. In fact, e-commerce is not Amazon and Flipkart. E-commerce is lakhs of those small startups, those who have been aspiring to become big in this process. Right. So I think, Supriya, this is definitely a very right and prudent step on the part of the government, and it will go a long way in supporting the e-commerce in this country.
Right. K. Ganesh, do you believe these revised rules tackle the so-called anti-competitive behavior by e-commerce entities? Was this the best possible way out? Isn't it a bit troubling that these e-com norms actually supposedly took place without any consultation? It then almost seems like it was more about sort of upending this, distortion, and, less about that, more about sort of pandering to pressure.
Yeah, so I have been involved in startup for the last 20 years. We have multiple startups. Some of our startups sell on marketplaces like Flipkart and Amazon and other food tech aggregators. So we have used these people to grow. I completely disagree with it. Flipkart and Amazon have followed every rule of the land, law of the land. Walmart did a complete due diligence with full legal advice. They have been 100% compliant. To say that they have flouted the rules is factually incorrect. Nobody, it has withstood the test of multiple rounds of due diligence by international and domestic lawyers. So nobody has flouted any of the rules whatsoever to come to this stage. Otherwise, people will not pay 16 billion for a company which doesn't stand due diligence. Number one. Number two, I have been in startup for 25 years. This does not help startups. Okay. To make online e-commerce work, you have huge cost of acquisition, you have huge delivery cost, warehousing cost. It is lack of each of these elements that made Indian startups Indian brick and mortar players not adopt to e-commerce, because it is expensive. Changing consumer behavior is expensive. You need to burn a lot of money. We in the last 10 years have enjoyed the benefit of FDI, people who have invested billions of dollars in India, creating lakhs of jobs in India, solving the consumer problem. We are abusing the level playing field. We are giving level playing field for few interested players and lobbyists who are trying to do that. What about the consumer? Biggest beneficiary of Flipkart or Amazon or this is the consumer, who gets convenience, who gets a choice, who gets to enjoy products which he can return if he doesn't like it. He gets good prices. Level playing field for interested lobbyists, for interested bunch of things, is complete humbug. So it will really hurt the people. It will hurt the startup system. Separately, I just want to add one thing. It is a fact that brick and mortar retailers in multi-brand retail were not allowed FDI. They were saying that give me FDI in multi-brand retail for offline also, so that it levels the playing field with e-commerce, because e-commerce players are using some structures, again legally allowed structures that withstand the scrutiny of diligence. They are using that. I don't have the ability. I agree with that allow multi-brand retail. But e-commerce people not, traders are going to get upset. E-commerce players, marketplaces has given opportunity for millions of traders to sell on Amazon and Flipkart. They could not sell on their own. So just because a bunch of people are protesting and some lobbyists are forming groups and munches to be able to speak, they are not speaking for the millions of traders, by the way. They are speaking for a very small minority of traders who are doing this. We need the investment. We need the ability to be able to change the consumer behavior for millions of traders to be able to sell nationally, which will not be possible without this FDI. Indian companies have been around for 100 years. They have not done e-commerce. They are not going to suddenly start doing it. You are protecting a very small minority of players who have got vested interest, so that this shuts down.
Right. Mr. Ganesh, let's get Mr. Mahajan to actually respond to that. Mr. Mahajan, you know, we operate in an omni-channel world. To that extent, the Kiranawalas are also being impacted by a big box homegrown retailers like Reliance Retail and Future Group. So, you know, why make the distinction?
You see, first of all, I would like to say that the gentleman who was speaking right now has been crossing limits, okay, and therefore this should not happen. We are the two representatives of the small shopkeepers. Go to any small shopkeeper, the retailers and selling electronic goods or other goods, see their faces, how they are, how much pressed they are. So for these two companies, we are not going to ruin our domestic players, our small e-commerce players. So if these companies are to operate here, they have to follow the law of the land. They have to follow the press note 3. They have to follow the press note 2. Therefore, saying that they are serving the nation, we don't need their services. We don't need them. If this is the behavior that they can't even understand the problems and the situation of the small players, the small shopkeepers, our small booksellers, there are crores of such people. How can we allow them to get ruined and get unemployed? So this is highly ridiculous what this gentleman was saying.
Well, Mr. Mahajan, that is your view, and Mr. Ganesh is entitled to his view, right? So we are here and we're debating this because we would like to take all views on board. But I sort of want to just take this discussion away from you know, the sort of rabble-rousing and bring it back to really what the policy is. And Harbinder Sani, let me come to you. You know, the policy says that cashback provided by group companies of marketplace entity to buyers shall be fair and non-discriminatory. Now, you know, Ganesh made a point about how, you know, these are norms that might not be all that win-win for consumers. Are we saying that this is now explicitly meaning that, you know, you're going to be disallowing discounts?
Yeah, it almost means that. And in a way, see, if you really go slightly higher and see it little from a distance. So I think what we are trying to do here is we are saying that people retailers like Amazon and Walmart or many other investors who have been investing in retail businesses, e-commerce in India specifically, that you forget about the retail business. What you should be, we want you to be a technology company. And that technology company should be running the business in a manner that it takes care of all possible differentiation which anybody could offer and try to normalize it to the level that everybody starts looking the same. So level, we have been talking about level field, homogeneous discount, homogeneous service, everything being same. So it almost sounds like creating a social structure, right? But being funded by these companies who are actually not technology companies, they are retailers. But we are saying, no, in India you should be a technology company doing all this for people for amount of money which you should be charging equally to everybody, and also making sure that all of them behave exactly the same way on your platform. So that's what we are asking them to do. So now choice is up to these people because they are retailers, they are big retailers. Walmart is world's largest retailer. Amazon is US largest e-commerce retailer with significant market cap and business. But we are telling them, no, here you are supposed to do something else. So now it's up to them because this is the law of the land and we don't want them to be operating in retail. But will they choose to be becoming technology companies where they are serving millions of traders, millions of small shopkeepers, all behaving in a very nice and proper manner and serving the Indian consumer as it was being served before anything else happened.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the big question is, that if this is what it is wanting it to be, then this is what it will be if people continue to choose to put billions of dollars in doing business which they are not even wanting to do.
Right. Okay.
So let's see how it goes from here.
Right. Vaibhav, the other bit is about, the way forward for private label businesses. The first restriction very explicitly disallows e-commerce marketplace companies from selling private labels. That is, brands that they directly or indirectly own on their platforms. Now, the private labels business, I think that's where, really the margins are. Of course, it's, it's sort of nascent. So my question really is twofold. One, what happens for the way forward for, again, your large e-tailers? And also, do these rules also apply for the larger brick and mortar companies?
So, Tanya, firstly on the private label, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, the way the notification is worded, if any of these marketplace companies have been involved in developing or mushrooming of any private label business through their own group companies or through equity investment, then unfortunately those kind of private label businesses will also face a challenge in being run through the marketplace. So that's clearly a bummer insofar as marketplace companies are concerned. And I think it's also in the backdrop of ultimately, if you're looking at innovation, you're looking at marketplace companies helping drive the whole Make in India construct, I think private label was a nice way to be able to venture into that space. And clearly, not having made that differentiation, I think would pose a significant disadvantage to the marketplace companies. I actually, Navnya, also want to sort of touch upon some of the other points that my other learned colleagues have spoken on this platform. I think where I would sort of like to come in and give you some perspective is the manner in which this notification has come out is seriously disturbing, to say the very least. There ought to be usually, if all these fine gentlemen have tremendous experience, and they can also tell you that when Press Note 3 came in, there was a fair degree of consultation that took place. Coming out with this press note without sort of having had any modicum of consultation with these marketplace companies, without having understood what are the real challenges. We talk about the fact that we need to democratize the ecosystem and get as many sellers on board as possible. Where is the capital? Where is the infrastructure? Where is the quality of standards? You already had a rule around 25%. You could have further incrementally improved those rules, done better enforcement. If there are issues of predatory pricing, there is already the Competition Commission of India, which is the watchdog here for pricing issues, for price distortions. Some people, there are already pending complaints before the CCI. Those could have been acted upon. There ought to have been discussions with these companies as to how they can improve the ecosystem in a manner which makes all these sellers and retailers a partner. And that kind of gentle nudging is what was the need of the hour. Now, what has happened here is that you already had the principles in place, but because of all the pressure groups, because of everything that's happening around us, we have now come up with far greater degree of prescriptions, which wasn't necessary at the point in time when you're also at the same time going out in the world and saying, come invest in the country, bring in more FDI. And if that is the principle, and as the other other colleague very rightly pointed this out, this is an open secret. We all know that these investors who you've been welcoming with open arms are all retailers in their backyards. They're all renowned retailers. They've been doing this business. You had welcomed them in this country. They had helped in creating that ecosystem. And today you're changing the rule of the game midway. I think that's where there is a problem. This ought to have been done in a much more balanced manner. And the timelines, think about that. 1st of February is a timeline. With all the structures that have already in place, is quite unfathomable for any company of large value to be able to unravel so quickly.
Right. Mr. Ganesh, let me ask you that. The 1st of Feb timeline, it's going to be a race against time. There's already talk about how we could see Flipkart, Amazon sort of contesting this move. How do you see this sort of taking shape? How is this going to change the e-tailer ecosystem, so to speak, if these rules were to remain, and, there may be pushback, and let's presume that we're not going to see the government moving, because, you could also argue that the timing is very interesting. It's, it's sort of to mollify the small traders ahead of the election.
No, I think it is a major concern. After you have got billions of dollars and, as was mentioned, welcomed people with open arms to invest in India, knowing fully well what they are doing. And when they came in, they have consistently followed the laws of the land as it exists today. They have not done anything illegal and have created jobs, have solved problems, have created infrastructure. All of it they have done. Giving them 1 month notice to unravel, is bizarre. It's not possible to do that. 2, I think this leveling the playing field, predatory pricing, we are taking it a bit too far. What about the same thing was said in FDI when organized retail came? They said the kirana stores will shut down. None of that really happened. Even in US, e-commerce or new age retail is less than 10% of the total retail. It has really not happened. Right? Therefore, to hold that is 2, you are talking about leveling the playing field. What do you want to do? You want the government to specify at what price each person will sell a phone, what margin he will make, what level of service he will provide. Are we becoming a socialist or communist state that we are going to specify how it should be done? What happened to free market competition? Tell me, I don't want to name, a leading telecom provider is giving at ridiculous prices, forcing mergers in the telecom sector between established players. Is it not predatory pricing? Who is benefiting? Consumer is benefiting. He is getting excellent connectivity across the country. Today, internet penetration data bandwidth rate in India is the lowest in the world because of that one player. It's an Indian player. Therefore, what do other people do? You want everybody to give the same price? Then we will go back to the time when we had only MTNL, BSNL, Air India. Why? Socialist country, communist country, everybody is the same price, everybody is equal. The world doesn't work like that. I don't want to go by Air India. I want the convenience of Ola and Uber. I want the convenience of Amazon and Flipkart, because before these people came, consumer was treated like dirt. Consumer was in trouble. Can you imagine ever going to a vegetable shop, returning the vegetables that you have got? You would have been abused by the shopkeeper. Today, thanks to standards set by these people, we have free return policy. We have convenience. I can sit at home and order. I get excellent selection. People in tier 2, tier 3 towns could not even imagine great brands. They have been made available courtesy these marketplaces. Therefore, enforce the law of the land. If there are anomalies, mistakes, correct it, but don't, for vested interest reason, lobbying reasons, election or political reasons, don't make it as if this is a death knell of small traders, therefore small traders are suffering, and before that they were very happy. They were not
Mr.
happy
Mahajan,
earlier.
Right. Mr. Ganesh,
And
Mr. Mahajan,
they can use the marketplaces to sell.
Sure.
We have startups that sell in these marketplaces.
Yes, Mr. Mahajan, go ahead. How do you respond to this charge of, the artificial distinction is distorted? Yes, please go ahead.
If vested interest is there, the interest is of those two companies whom he is representing. If vested interest is there, it is for the Flipkart and Walmart. If the vested interest is there, it is for the big corporates and the multinationals. Vested interest is not, when vested interest is there, for us, yes, we take pride in saying
Tanya,
that
I'm not representing
we have
anybody,
the interest in the small
I have no interest.
booksellers, we have the interest in the small, yeah. So why all the time we forget that this
Tanya,
FDI
I'm not
which is
representative.
coming,
I have no interest in
Mr. Mahajan,
Flipkart
Mr.
or
Ganesh has made
Walmart.
it very
FDI
clear
is
he is
not
not
for-
representing
not for
anybody. Yes.
Okay.
And I have no
Why-
shareholding in either of
why
those companies.
we-
I never
why
held
we
any
don't think
shareholding.
of the small players.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I have.
okay.
Harminder
okay.
Sani,
Tanya,
I'm
I
going
think
to end
one
this
point
discussion
which
with you. Harminder, I'm just going to end this discussion with you. And you know, the question really to be asked is, where is the ease of doing business in the country? Because here's a government that's getting into business model, deciding on, you know, who's going to sell, how much they're going to sell, to whom they're going to sell. How do you respond to that criticism?
See, I think in this whole context, it's a very small subset we are looking at. So we are looking at retail, we are looking at e-commerce retail, online retail, and within that we are looking at FDI. Because rest everybody is free to do whatever they want to do. Because these, like you asked somebody in between, he didn't answer that, these laws do not apply to big box retailers. So whether it's a Reliance, whether it's a Future Group, whether it is any other large format lifestyle shopper stop, they can do whatever they want to do. They can have exclusive agreements also with the brands and they can make it available only there. So it's only FDI in online retail. That's a small subset which we are talking about, right? And somehow this has gotten all the attention because of the amount of monies which has been raised in and the kind of players who have come in, and that's where all these things are happening. So government is not getting into, so I will say that with some confidence, they are not getting into controlling everybody, but somehow they are very, very keen to control this small subset of the retail industry. And there, I think they have made intentions amply clear that they just do not want these people to be in the business of online retail in India. So I think that is the message has to be taken. So there is nothing like incremental changes or pushback or anything happening here, because there is a very small subset. It's not going to overall, since we are discussing online retail, we are discussing that. So it looks like the whole world, but that's a very small subset.
All right, gentlemen. I'm afraid I'm going to have to wrap this discussion up. I've completely run out of time. But Vaibhav, Mr. Mahajan, Ganesh, and of course, Namendra, thank you so much for taking the time out in this edition of the India Development Debate. Thanks for watching.